I need to make a change in my life. I need to start to take responsibility for my life. I need to become a better father, a better mother. I need to be that person that, is the rock in my family.
All of these other areas of their life in incredibly positive ways, nutrition and movement, exercise, really movement. I mean, my 80-year-old, not now, she's in her 90s, but when she was in her 80s, my grandmother would walk the beach every day, and I think that's part of why she's still alive and lucid today. So yeah, there's something to this.
He was the son of Anu's half sister, so he would be the rightful ruler. He'd be the crown prince. This political system was designed by the Anunnaki, right? And what it is that through their bloodlines, their bloodlines are the ones that are running the show, lock, stock, and barrel. If you are new to this podcast, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and to share, because that helps us to be recommended in the algorithms. If you would like to support this podcast, please check out our merch store on Amazon with the brand Todd and Me. We've got some cool t-shirts, tank tops, hoodies, and sweaters. Link will be in the description of this podcast. And if you're now starting a spiritual journey, you would like to start a spiritual journey, or you're currently on a spiritual journey and you would like some help removing some fears and traumas, please hit me up on my Instagram at Adriano_246, and it will help you to get some magic mushrooms. Enjoy the show and stay tuned, because we have some more great content coming soon. Hello friends, and welcome back to the Conscious Man 7 podcast. I am your host Todd Cave, and on this episode I was a first time guest on the My Family Thinks I'm Crazy podcast hosted by Mark Steeves, and we delved into the Anunnaki world order, the serpent, eagle, and bull cults, and we also talked about maximizing your potential in terms of finding yourself. I also gave some tips and tricks on how to improve your physical health through exercise and diet, because the truth is that we have been dumbed down, tricked, and indoctrinated to poison ourselves by the food that we eat. And what I did is I gave some tips on how to be able to do that, because in reality the body is the temple, and without raising the frequency of the body, you're not really going to be able to discover and find the spirit that dwells inside of it. And by getting yourself into shape and also eating high energy foods, then you have a much better chance of realizing the spirit and being able to overcome fears and traumas, because this is also linked to your subconscious mind, which is why people tend to have self-destructive habits like smoking and drinking and all other sorts of vices, because all of these things come from your subconscious. And we even delved into that area, and I gave some also hacks on how you can improve your state of mind and well-being.
When truth is blurred by lies and misinformation, perception becomes reality. What will you perceive your reality to be?
Liberate your fears and walk with me.
Sit down and meditate. Connect with your soul.
Be a monster and then learn how to control it.
You got to be willing to do the work.
So it really goes really deep in terms of words and etymology and what they mean. So this is why it is really hard to really crack the matrix, because there's so many levels and layers to it,
The Conscious Man 7 podcast's own Todd Cave joins me here on the My Family Thinks I'm Crazy podcast. Todd, thanks for being here, man. And for people who might not have tuned into your show yet or haven't seen you on Instagram, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you have going on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Mark. I'm really happy to be here. So yes, my name is Todd Cave. I was originally born in Barbados, and when I was 20 years old, I went to the United Kingdom and lived there. And then 2017, a lot of stuff started to happen to me. I had life-changing foot surgery, and that basically caused a series of dominoes to fall in my life. And basically, long story short, I ended up just reading a whole bunch of books because I was on the verge of depression, and I used books as a way to escape what I was going through, because it was a very difficult time for me at the time, where I had gotten really, really fat. My foot wasn't healing. I had lost my job. And, you know, when as a man, when you lose your source of income and stuff like that, it kind of like rocks your identity, you know? And basically, I started to read loads of books, and one of the books that really started me down the entire rabbit hole of the things that I will share today is a book called The Lost Book of Enki, written by Zachariah Sitchin. And that book made me question a lot of things. So I just started to read a lot of religious books, spiritual books, self-help books, economics books, conspiratorial books. You know, that led me down reading the stuff like by CFR, the Illuminati, that was written by, I think, by C.F. Fagan. I got into the Bhagavad Gita and the Hindu scriptures. I got into the Quran, the Bible, the Talmud. I just was just searching and searching, because what I was finding was really challenging my entire paradigm and what I thought was real. And, you know, it was kind of like painful for me, because like even my identity, what I thought was me, was being destroyed as the more I started to read. And basically, I fast forward a couple of years, I was searching more for myself, and I got introduced to like psychedelics. My first psychedelics experience was with ayahuasca, and that pretty much like opened another realm of like identity, sort of like clashes inside of myself. And fast forward a few months from there, I did ayahuasca again, and I connected more with my higher self. And my higher self told me in September 2019 that I'm going to do fitness. And it was something that I really like didn't want to do, because not that I didn't like fitness, but I didn't like the idea of me being in front of a camera, you know, posing and writing posts and talking in public, right? Because I'm a very private person. But I always describe it as the voice, and the voice insisted that was what I was going to do. So after a few hours of arguing with the voice, I agreed to do it. And then that basically put me on the trajectory of basically speaking in public, being comfortable in front of a camera, making videos. And then as I kept reading more and more books, I started to understand and connect a lot more dots about our ancient hidden history, the Anunnaki, religion, spirituality, you know, evolution of human consciousness, all of these type of things. And what happened to me is that I had a friend that he had a connection into the Acapulco group, the Acapulco conference, which is a conference for anarchists in Acapulco, Mexico. And I basically got an opportunity to speak about some of the things that I will share tonight. And that basically opened up the door for me to be even doing podcasting and having my own show and stuff. So it was like a very, very long journey. And the thing is that I started to speak publicly like this. It was basically, it was 2021, October. And then I had my first in-person speaking opportunity at Acapulco 2022. And I started to go on guest podcasts like what I'm doing tonight and speaking. And I really liked it. But what happened to me is that I didn't really see like a lot of people were at the time really interested in this type of information. So I kind of like just packed it in. And then this year, someone called me out of quotation marks retirement. And here I am now on your show, right? Because one thing led to the next. And I started to speak again. And I really do love it. And again, the voice told me, woke me out of my sleep and said, Todd, 2 words, 2 podcasts. And I was like, okay. And I started my own show. The first episode I uploaded May 31st, 2024. And from then I have 24 episodes now, and I'm really enjoying the journey. So that's a bit of a very condensed, introduction about myself and a bit of my journey, but it's been a very long and hard journey, and one that now I realize that it had to be that way, because like I am able to, speak about certain things and explain it in a way that makes sense to people. And it certainly makes sense to me. And I get to do things I like to do because I like helping people. So I help people get into shape with obviously my coaching. Then I can inform people about what's really going on and some things that they've been told that are not necessarily true in the form of my podcast. And then I also, I work with a company that makes magic mushrooms, and I help people that are on spiritual journeys to, overcome fears and traumas, and people that have PTSD and, other little things that they're trying to, overcome. I help them by being able to get them magic mushrooms. So I feel really honored and privileged and happy to be able to help people in all ways that I can. And it is a shadow of my former life. When they say a shadow, it's like completely different, I think is the right way to say, from what I used to be. I used to be a civil engineer, and I used to be a tunnel engineer, and I was a good engineer. But that life, it was shown to me, was only good for then. And now I help spiritually inclined people burn fat and build muscle, and speak on podcasts and help people on spiritual journeys.
I love that. And thank you so much for joining me on this evening and talk about all this. I'm really excited, and I appreciate you giving us the introduction there. And I'm curious how you got motivated to not only, because you said there was some depression going on, but I find, from my own experience and from dealing with friends and whatnot, that it's often hardest to get out of that, slump. And physical motion tends to maybe jumpstart some of those positive trajectories that will take you out of depression. You seem to be seeking certain information. Was that a part of your expansion, like a mental and physical one? Did those coincide with one another, or did one precede the other? How did that exactly transpire? Because I get messages from people all the time, and personal relationships of mine, I see this happening, and I always try to do my best to help people, but it's very hard when someone has depression, or they're thinking about the past. So yeah, I guess if you could speak to that from your own experience, and maybe even if you have advice for people listening who might be in a similar situation that you once were in.
So thanks for the question. It's a very good question. And in my case, it started more on me searching, because this was at the time because this was 2017. So this was just after Donald Trump had got into office. And at the time, I had liked Donald Trump, and I was just sharing loads of memes and videos and stuff about, the other side, right? And what happened is that started to become very boring after a while. It was okay for a few months. But what happened is that I basically I just felt like if there was more to just spending idle hours on social media. And what happened is that I picked up a book, because my father had given me a book called The Lost Book of Enki. And that book he gave me that book 2008. And I only read it, but I read it in very piecemeal. So it was so big of gaps between me reading it that it didn't make sense, and I thought it was quite boring. But I picked up the book out of pure boredom, because what am I assuming to do? I'm on crutches. I can't go anywhere. I was made redundant. I'm in a lot of pain. I'm overweight, and I can't physically walk properly without the crutches. Excuse me. So it was like, okay, let's do something different. So I picked up the book, and when I started to read, I was like, oh my goodness, this book is completely like destroying the narrative that they tell us in religion and in the Bible. So I was like, okay, maybe it's just one book. So at that time, YouTube was still pretty good. So I used to follow like channels and stuff that about this genre of information, like Rex Beer, League Project, Gerald Clark. I think I can't remember his other channel. His channel called, and then also a guy called Global Witness at the time. And I started to like on all of their shows, they would talk about the books that they have read, and I decided, you know what, I don't have anything else to do, so I'll just get some of these books. So I started to just get books now as a way to cope with me feeling sad and down because I was overweight. I couldn't work. I was trapped in my room, just spending all of my time between these four walls. The only time I left home was to go to the supermarket or to go to the physiotherapist or to the doctor to get my, bandages checked and all that kind of stuff. And basically what started to happen is that because I was feeling so like depressed, I used reading books as like a form of escapism. So it first started for me as a way to try to cope with what I was going through because I was seeing my entire world crumble in front of me. And every piece of myself that I thought was important, like traveling was important, money was important, girls was important, my image, all of these things were gradually, like just being taken away from me. And it just kept hurting. So I just started to read books. And what happened is that as I started to read, I started to pick. It was very interesting for me because like I had nothing else to concentrate on, so I could focus on these things. But it was like, because I don't like to really necessarily use the word conspiracy theorist, but I was always an alternative thinker. And what I was starting to see is that what I understood about economics, in that we live in a fiat money system where the money is not real and they print the money out of thin air and the government's borrowing money at an interest. I started to see the whole facade of religion and government being exposed in the books that I was reading. So I started to put all this information together in my head, and I'd be talking to my family, mostly my mother. And it was more of a situation for me that I needed something to occupy my mind because, like I said, after a few months of just being on social media at the time, that got very, very old. And I was never a person that was a scroller per se, because I knew that social media was designed to alter our emotional state. I knew that it was always a way to just grab information from us and stuff. So I was kind of like, okay, well, that's old now, so let's do something new. So it got to a point where, like, as I was reading so much, then the physical part started to become very, very evident. Because one day, as I was preparing to go to the physiotherapist, I bent down. Well, I sat in my bed and I bent over to tie my shoes. And when I tried to do that, I was out of breath. My belly was so big that basically I couldn't breathe. And that was the moment that I was like, okay, this is the last, this is it. That's a line drawn in sand. So, and I was always in the gym and physically active and stuff, but it was only like that moment was like my aha moment. And funnily, when I went to the city physio the same day, I asked him, well, can I start back to train in the gym? And he said, yes. He says, structurally, your foot is fine. He says, obviously, you just have to take it easy, but there's no reason why you can't train your upper body and your lower body. Just take it easy. Structurally, it can bear the weight. It's just a matter of getting the ligaments and tendons and the muscles and the ankle moving again. I said, okay. And it was just like serendipity where that happened. I saw him. He gave me a whole heap of stretches to do. And that's when I started to work back on my physical body as well. So what happened is that because I couldn't train the way I used to train before, I started to really research how to train better and most importantly, nutrition. Because what a lot of people don't realize is that it is impossible with a capital I to just do exercise but not work on your nutrition and think that you're going to get into shape. Whether you're trying to build muscle or burn fat, you have to have good nutrition.
Right.
So I started to research more about that because I had more like a seafood diet, which was like seafood and eat it. But that doesn't really work per se when you're trying to burn fat or build muscle.
Right.
And basically I started to understand, okay, well, yes, obviously you know about proteins, carbs, and fats, but it's the quantities in which you eat those foods that determine what you want to do. So I'm very much self-taught in terms of nutrition, purely because,
what you're just saying, because I find all of this absolutely fascinating, and there's something to it. If a keen observer were keeping notes of this podcast, I certainly am not. I'm just going by the seat of my pants and, momentarily taking one podcast at a time. But if a keen observer took note of each, guest that we've had on who's made mention of their lifestyle and how their health has affected all of these other areas of their life in incredibly positive ways, nutrition and movement, exercise, really movement. I mean, my 80-year-old, not now, she's in her 90s, but when she was in her 80s, my grandmother would walk the beach every day, and I think that's part of why she's still alive and lucid today. So yeah, there's something to this. The world we live in is almost, giving us all these easy roads to, satisfaction that end up leaving us kind of depleted. And you reached that point with your health issues, which, let me ask you, how old were you when that happened, and how old are you now, if you don't mind telling us?
I was 35 when I had my surgery, and I am currently 42. I will be 43 this year.
Wow. So, I mean, you lived a full life before that happened. As you said, you're a civil engineer, you had a good job, you're good at your job. And, do you think there was something on a higher level of destiny, so and so forth, that was maybe pushing you away from the life you had into maybe a hardship or, a night of the soul, shadow period of your life, so to speak, so that you can maybe reconnect with these energies that you're now connecting with? I mean, I don't want to speak for you. It's sort of a loaded question there, but what do you think about that?
That's a very interesting question. And I was actually asked that same question, slightly different, but basically same question on a show that I did today. And as of 2024, my answer has changed from when it was 2017. And I can categorically say yes, because I've spent a lot of time on my own. And what I realize about myself is that I'm a very stubborn person. And what happens to me is that I tend, even though I don't like it, but this seems to be my personality, I tend to mostly make changes when I'm forced to make changes. And while I don't like that, because when I am forced to make the changes, I tend to go all in on the changes. So I don't do anything half-assed. So if I'm going to do something, I go all in. I have what my sister calls it an obsessive personality. But basically what I put that to is that when I decide and I choose I'm going to do something, I go all in. I don't do it like a little bit. I said, no, I'm going to commit. But the problem with me is that it takes a lot of pushing to get there. So according to people like Dolores Cannon, she says that we have all made soul contracts before we incarnated here, and that we chose the life that we are living, so that because we want soul growth and that we would wake up. Now, if using her theory that is true, I can completely understand why I had the accident in 2005. why I had the surgery in 2017, because I probably would not have woken up. I probably would be still in England working, being a civil engineer. I'd probably been like a project manager by now, most likely. And if you had offered me what I'm doing now, if I were a project manager now, I would have turned it down every single day. So it took me going through a lot of hardship, a lot of down times. You know what I mean? I've taken a lot of hits in the last 7.5 years. And it's only like now that I feel like I have a purpose in life. I feel like what I'm doing, I'm supposed to do. I feel very happy. And technically it is another job for me, but I can do shows all day and it would never feel like work. And I just have this feeling of fulfillment and satisfaction in myself to know that I'm actually helping people. I help people connect with magic mushrooms. I help people get into shape. I help people to understand what the matrix is made up of through sharing the information on podcasts. And I get up every day and I feel like, yeah, Todd, I feel like this. Yeah, let's do this, man. What we have today, who are we talking to today, right? I get up like a kid, feeling that happiness, right? And I know people that have like a lot of money, they don't ever have to work, and they're actually not happy. And, one of my friends said to me, like, Todd, even though one may say that I am very successful in life, I'm actually not happy. And the thing is that what I realize is that money doesn't buy you happiness, but happiness is a state of being inside of you. And I find that one of the big, big keys that I have connected and dots have connected is that your purpose in life isn't to go to work and pay a mortgage. Your purpose in life is to help people in some way or form or fashion. And the more you can help people, the more you feel like you feel satisfied. And when you are able to contribute something to humanity, there's this, I don't know how to describe it in words, but there's this energy that you connect to, right? That it sort of like guides and steers you, where it requires a big element of trust. But because you know that you're doing your life's mission and your life's purpose, then the trust becomes easier to accept the more times you see, the universe is provided for you. And I always have to tell myself this, and I always tell this to people that are going through hardships. If the Father can provide for the birds and the bees, what makes you think that he can't provide for you? And this is where the element of trust comes in. And for me, I'm kind of lucky where I know that this is my purpose. This is what I'm supposed to do. And it fills me with so much joy and happiness. And people message me. I have a lot of messages now. And it's not even a chore to reply to people. I just tell people apologies that it took me so long to get back to you. But, when you get 30, 40 messages a day, and you don't have a VA, it takes a while to reply. And, that is just part of it, And I feel very like this is what I came back here to do, because we on Earth now have a fantastic opportunity where the Earth's magnetosphere is not as strong as it was before. We are going into the zodiac of Aquarius, and we are having a lot of change on Earth. We're receiving more energy from more light from our central sun. So what's happening is that it is activating our DNA. The tri-wave and the diamond wave frequencies are coming into the planet. So what is happening is that people like me are being activated a bit earlier than others. But then it's for my job now to help steer, guide, inform, and educate the others who may not be as aware of the things that I share. So that is what I came to do, to help humanity. And the more of us that start to accept our paths of that we're here to help and guide others, the more fulfillment we would get in life. And this is what happened to me after I started to do podcasts. I felt this massive shift in me from the first episode I uploaded on May the 31st. And some other things started to happen to me in my life at the same time. And I was like, you know what? Que sera, sera. What will be. And since then, I've felt this deeper connection with my higher self. I felt a lot calmer. I just have to manage my time a lot more because I don't have that much time anymore. But again, that's not even a complaint. That's like, okay, it is what it is. So you just manage your time better. And honestly, Mark, I just feel like, I feel very happy to do what I'm doing. And the spiritual part that started to happen to me first, and then a few months later, the physical part, and then now I am a teacher. I never thought of myself as a teacher because I never did. I always thought of myself as an engineer. But I guess if my mother was a teacher and my sister ended up becoming a teacher, and now I'm a teacher. So I guess it probably runs in your family. So what I would say to people is that the things that you resist persist. And, the things that you run away from are the things that give you the most growth in life. And that has certainly been the case for me.
Don't run away is kind of the point I'm hearing then.
Absolutely. The more you run away, the harder it's going to get. And trust me, I stopped doing shows for 8 months last year. I stopped doing my fitness business for 8 months because I was just in a place where I was trying to find myself, trying to find purpose in life. And I started back everything this year. And basically, what I've realized is that it was from me running away. I didn't want to have the responsibility of editing my own videos, creating a podcast platform, finding guests, this and the next. And it was just a story that I created in my head. And what's happened to me now is that I find guests to come on my show, and I appear on other people's shows, and people help me to, go on other shows because I just want to talk to people. And I guess because there's a genuineness, there where I'm actually trying to help people, and people are giving me help. So I help other people know. I have a friend that I help him to get onto some other shows that I've been on. And I always tell people that what you emit into the universe is what comes back to you. So if you want people to help you, you need to help people, because you can't give someone something that you don't already have. You can't expect someone to love you if you don't love yourself. First, you have to love yourself first, and then other people will love you, because the way in which you carry yourself, that energy, frequency, and vibration, people will subconsciously pick up, and they will treat you in a certain way. It's just like if you have boundaries and you politely tell people to please respect your boundaries, then that is from a place of self-love. So people will be like, okay, I'll respect this guy Todd because that's one of his boundaries. But if you don't love yourself, you don't have any boundaries, So you have to go inside of yourself, find out what you like, find out what pushes your buttons, and heal your fears and traumas, because those are the things that cause you to self-sabotage. And as I've said in the past, I think self-sabotage is the biggest existential threat to human beings. I don't think it's the economic system or nuclear weapons. I think it's self-sabotage, because if you think about it, when you self-sabotage, you break promises to yourself. And a broken promise to yourself hurts more than someone breaking a promise to you, because you're the one that knows that you made that promise. And you may even be too ashamed to tell someone that you brought that promise to yourself. But there's only one person that's experiencing the feeling of disappointment, and that is you. So you must be impeccable with your words. And I would suggest a very good book for people to read, and it's called The Four Agreements. can't remember the name of the author right off the top of my head. But
Miguel Ruiz.
Yes, very good book. I read that book twice. 4 agreements: never take anything personally. Always be impeccable with your word. Don't assume anything, and always give your best. You do those 4 things, I guarantee you will change your life. And one of the things that one of the last parts that I had to really, really overcome was not taking things personally. And as my sister always reminds me, she says, Todd, people can only relate to you or interact with you from the level of consciousness that they are at the present, at that time. So if someone does or says something to you, don't take it personally, because that is only them acting out about how they feel about themselves inside of them onto me or onto you. So that's why like now I kind of like have a different mindset where like I don't mind people giving me feedback or telling me things, but I do my best to not take things personally anymore. And, you know, I tend to like try to diffuse conflict as quick as possible. And even if that means me just leaving a conversation, you know, but you are what you attract, and you have to maintain a high standard of yourself in order to attract the people, the opportunities, the money, the partner, the life, you know, that you want. You have to be that thing. And if you're not that thing, then you're just being a fraud, but you're being a fraud to yourself. And being a fraud to yourself is worse than frauding other people, because you're the only one that will play that scenario in your head over and over and over again. And you're the one that's going to be feeling very sorry about yourself. So this is one of the things that I try to teach to people, to work on their fears and traumas, start things like meditation, get into shape. When you start to get the body moving, you're able to physically change the state of how you feel immediately. I have never seen or heard of a person that is physically training, doing exercise at I don't want to say a high level, but at least a level that makes you sweat and you're feeling sad and depressed while doing calisthenics or while doing weights or while doing running. You know what I mean? I don't think it's possible, because the energy that your brain has to switch off of the things that are affecting you. And it gives you this mental break so that you can actually think about things better, or come to a realization that you're the person that's causing these things and you have to make different choices, you know? So it's one of those things that I try to teach people all the time, and that's one of the things that the book shows you, that you have to take responsibility, because we humans, we've been taught to not take responsibility. For example, look at religion. Religion has mostly the same ideology. There's this savior character in the religion that's going to come and make everything great for you. So what you do is you give everything to that savior character, or to give it to God, and you don't do any work yourself. You want to lose weight? Oh, God will help me to lose weight. But you don't physically get up out of your chair and maybe say start to walk first, get the body moving. No, the mentality is, oh, I'll give it to God. They know in terms of government, the government is, quotation marks, our savior. So the government will give me a house. The government will make my life better. The government will help me when I'm sick. Instead of going out there and making your own keep, you know, being responsible and to be able to fulfill, you know, what you want in life, instead of relying on the government. So you see, even with those two, which are religions, because government is a religion and organized religion is a religion, those two are part of these 3 religions that I call that what create the matrix. So the other one is the religion of money. But for the sake of this analogy, the 2 religions of government and organized religion, the government is the savior, and you have like a Mahdi in Islam, you have a Messiah in Judaism, and you have Jesus, which Jesus is not even his real name. His name is Yeshua or Yehoshua, but that's another conversation. That is going to do everything. So you give everything to those saviors. and you do nothing. This is the mindset that we have on earth. And this is the reason why a lot of people are fat, lazy, depressed, commit suicide, you know what I mean? All these kind of bad things because we're not taking responsibility for ourselves. And they know that, you know, we have hardships in life, but the only person that's going to save you is you. No one is going to come to save you. So all these religious people that think that a savior is coming back to save them, that's actually not the case. Because even Yeshua said, if they said, I have returned and I'm over there or I'm here, don't believe them. He actually said he's not coming back. But yet still we have Christians that believe that Yeshua is coming back to save them. But that's not the case, right? And when you relegate your ability to think for yourself or your ability to take action and put that action on an external entity, that external entity, person or thing is always going to let you down. And this is why we have so many issues on earth where we failed to work on ourselves. We fail to take responsibility. We have victim mentality, and all we're doing is being oppressed more and more and more. We're being corralled for the slaughter because, you know, what happened in 2020 is just the beginning of what's to come. And I always say to people that right now we live in relative peace times. So we need to work on ourselves. And this is the message that I repeat over and over on every single show, that we need to work on ourselves. We need to hold ourselves responsible for the situation we're in. And if we can't get ourselves out, hire a coach, a mentor, get someone that can guide you. But you have to have someone to show you what to do if you don't think you're able to do it yourself. But we tend to not even want to ask for help. So it is a strange dichotomy that we have here on earth right now. You know what I mean?
Well, and it's no surprise that in the self-help section of most bookstores, you have magic, conspiracy, aliens, all these topics right there next to self-help. And I think that, you know, as maybe that might seem like a joke, there's something really meaningful there. And that is that self-help is this path that we eventually, I think a lot of people find themselves seeking out, whether we know that by its name or not. We're looking to help ourselves and become self-reliant. And part of that is becoming aware of what's really out there. And that includes all these strange things that for the most part, the mainstream has left out. I tend to think this is not just some sort of accident of history. I think this is a purposeful manipulation to leave people in a state of being that is easily exploited by these various systems, as you pointed out. So, you know, maybe we can sort of lace in some of the higher order sort of strange stuff here, because you know, this is all very important to me, especially at this point in my life. This is well timed. I really needed a conversation like this, Todd. So I really appreciate your integrity, your grounding, your authenticity, because it's coming through this conversation and it's inspiring me, frankly. So I appreciate that. And when it comes to, you know, these things that, I don't know, bedazzle, like the Anunnaki, it kind of comes out of left field for people who might be just seeking, you know, to figure out what's really going on in the world. It's like, well, how does ancient history fit into what's going on in the modern day? You know, it's really astounding to me. And part of the reason why I'm so fascinated with history and ancient history in particular, but this was a part of your awakening, finding certain books. You mentioned the Book of Enki. Talk to us about that a little deeper. I mean, do you think that today's world is somehow actively manipulated or connected to what we're taught from biblical sources, even the non-canonical ones? I don't know if the Book of Enki would be included in the... Isn't that a part of what would you call it? The lost books of the Bible, so to speak. But yeah, I'm curious how that in your mind affects us here today in the modern world. Not that I doubt it. I just would love to hear you elaborate.
Sure. And that was a really good segue, because I was actually going to bring that up as well myself, because the reason why I talk about these things and I tend to try to lay a bit of groundwork before I go into this information is that I try to explain and show to people that the system is inherently a fraud. Government was created to be exactly what it is doing. And the reason why I had to lay the groundwork is that in order to understand the present, you need to understand the past. And when you want to dig into the past, we have to go back to the oldest records that we have on Earth, and these are called the Sumerian tablets. You know, there are people out there that would say, well, these are just myths and tales and we can't believe them. But there is, to my knowledge, no other records that are older than these records. Let me repeat that. These records are the oldest records we have on Earth. It is written in a writing system called cuneiform, which use clay tablets, and they have like edgings where they would take like a stylus that had like a point, and they would edge and carve characters into these clay tablets. And then, which is very tedious, by the way, then they would bake these tablets to make them hard so that they would be able to withstand the test of time. And these tablets go back to 5,500 years ago, and they talk about a time that is goes back up to 450,000 years ago. So these records are from about 3,200 to 3,400 BC. And these clay tablets talk about a group of deities called the Anunnaki, who appear to be what we call the fallen angels or the Nephilim or the watchers in the book of Enoch. On examination of the Sumerian tablets, the stories and tales found in the Bible and other religious texts appear to be mere carbon copies of these original texts, with a few redactions in changes of names. And when you start to look at these stories in these tablets, and then you look at stories in the Bible, and you look at other things that come out of other religions, you realize that the stories that are there are the original stories, because Judaism doesn't go, the records that they have is not as old as these. The second oldest records we have are the Hindu Sanskrit texts, the Vedic texts, and then the oldest are the cuneiform. So if we have stories in the Bible and the Tanakh for the Jews, that's what they call it, that are very, very similar to what are in the tablets, but the records that we're given in the Bible and stuff are similar, or sometimes the same with some name changes. It means that the stories in our religious books are plagiarisms and copies of the original text. Now, there's one tablet that is very, very interesting out of all the tablets, and it's called the Sumerian Kings List. And on the actual Sumerian Kings List, it says, after the heaven descended from heaven, the kingship was in Eridu. Now, when they say heaven, they really mean the sky. Now, it is only in English language that English speakers have great difficulty to conceptualize that the sky is just the heaven. Now, in other languages, there's only one word. Heaven and sky is the same. So like in Spanish, cielo is heaven and cielo is sky. In Portuguese, is céu. Céu is sky and céu is heaven. And even in Italian, it's the same. I can't remember off the top of my head what was Italian, but it's one word. So my point is that what has happened is that because of English, it's difficult for us to conceptualize that these beings came from the sky and not heaven and this mytherical, etheric place where God is sitting on a throne with a white beard and a staff that is there to chastise us when we don't listen to what he says. Now, where they landed was in a place called Eridu, which was in Mesopotamia, which is today southern Iraq. And basically, this area is Mesopotamia, is part of Mesopotamia. And Mesopotamia is comprised of places like Sumer, Elam, Akkad, Babylon, and other cities which go into to the banks of the Persian Gulf. So basically, what's also interesting is that on these tablets, they document a time of 432,000 years. And the first half of those time, it's a little bit more than half, you call them the 8 immortal kings, and they ruled for 241,200 years. And you had characters like Alulim that ruled for 8 shars. Now, a shar is 3,600 years. So he ruled for 28,800 years. You have characters like Alangar, who ruled for 10 shars, 36,000 years. You had people in Menlua, Luana, ruling for 43,200 years. So you can see that you have these characters that are ruling for a very, very long time. And then it talks about the Great Flood. Now, also, you have, when you look at the Genesis story, there's not just one flood. There's more than one flood. There's at least 2 floods in the Genesis story. And on these, in the Sumerian kings list, there was a character called Ubaratutu. He ruled for 18,600 years, and he was the father of Utanapishtim, which is the character referenced in the Epic of Gilgamesh. And then it says, and the flood swept over. Now, Utanapishtim is a very interesting character because in the Atrahasis, or Atrahasis, however you want to pronounce it, his name is actually called Zayasudra. And he is the Noah character in the Bible. So the exact same story in the Bible comes from the Atrahasis, where Enki, who was really his father, he basically told him that, hey, you are going to build a vessel because a great flood is going to come, and you round up your family and what's not. And he gave him the dimensions and everything. And that is the same exact story that's told in the book of Genesis with Noah, where God speaks through a wailing wall to Noah and tells him to build this ark. And in this story, in the Atrahasis, because Enki did not want to break the promise that he made to the other Anunnaki that he wouldn't tell humanity, he didn't allow Atrahasis or Zayasudra to see his face. So he spoke to him behind a wall, and he also told him to build the ark. So it's the exact same story with just a few redactions. And this is why I say to people that in order for you to understand not only religion, but the dogma, to understand the system we live in, you have to go back to ancient history, and all roads seem to lead to the Sumerian tablets and Mesopotamia. All of them. So then now, according to these Sumerian tablets, this group of deities of the ancient Sumerians, Akkadians, Assyrians, and Babylonians, they came from a planet called Nibiru. That's according to them. So some of the main deities in this group of people, one was called Enlil. He was the Lord of Air or the Lord of Command. Enki, he was Lord of Earth. Marduk, he was a chief deity or chief god in Babylon. And Ningajida, he was the god of vegetation and the underworld. So in the Lost Book of Enki, which I referenced before, basically it tells of a story of the Anunnaki coming here 450,000 years ago in search of gold and other minerals to send back to their home planet Nibiru, whose atmosphere was imploding. So basically, when they came here, they used like a lower caste. So think of the Anunnaki as like the kings, the heads of state, the politicians, the prime ministers, the aristocrats and stuff. These would be what we call the Anunnaki. And then you have like the working class people, the people that, cut lawns for a living, the plumbers, the electricians, the bus drivers. Those would be equivalent of like the Agigi or the Agigi in some pronunciations. And the Agigi came here and they came to mine the gold, and it was hard work. And what happened is that after many, many years, the Agigi rebelled and said, hey, this work is too hard. We didn't come here to be slaves, and this is backbreaking work. And what happened is that they downed their tools, they burned their tools, and they went to go to war with the Anunnaki. And they surrounded Enlil's palace, and they were going to go to war with them. And this is when his brother Enki had an idea, and he said, well, we need some primitive workers to do this work for us. And he said that there is an existing hominid species on Earth that we can use to create a class of workers. We can mix our essence with theirs. And that's what the tablets say. It says they mix their essence, which is basically their DNA. So what they did is that they did in vitro with a zygote, and they impregnated one of their own Anunnaki females, whose name was called Ishtar, Isis, Inanna. And she brought to term the baby for 10 months. And this is why there's a statue of her on a figurine with her holding a baby in her hand, and she's saying, my hands have made it, right? So this was possible because Enki was a master geneticist. And what he did is that he used the existing hominid species and used their DNA, tweaked it, and created us. And this is how come we basically were born into servitude. So this is why you have the haves and the have-nots. You have the beings that are governing over us and us that are being governed. This is why you have like government, because all of us were born and the government existed. But the government came into power many, many, many thousands of years ago through the bloodlines of these Anunnaki. And the story of the Anunnaki gets even more interesting because you have the stories in the Bible where it said, let us make man in our own image. And the word that they used was Elohim. But the thing is that in Hebrew, El means God and Im is plural, which is why they're called the gods. Now, this is a very loose translation because there's a guy called Mauro Biglino who has translated some ancient texts from Latin and Greek that was in the Vatican Library. And you can find him on YouTube if you search him, his name, Mauro Biglino. And basically he's saying that, in fact, Elohim really means the powerful ones, the mighty ones, or you can even call them the judges. So it means then that these extraterrestrial beings came here on Earth, created us to be a slave race. And what they did is to keep us in bondage and slavery. They invented money, government, and religion in order to keep us trapped in the matrix and keep us trapped into their host body slave system, because all we are is slaves to them, right? Now, when you look back at the Sumerian tablets, you see that those characters ruled for very, very long. And the reason is that they were of purer Anunnaki DNA, right? Now, when they use the word Anunnaki, basically just think of them as advanced humans and just much taller and just a lot more clever and much more advanced. Because what's happened is that Hollywood has basically shaped us into thinking that all extraterrestrials are like little green men, or like when you have like Star Trek, where they have like all these unusual looking beings. But basically, from what my research has shown me, is that the Anunnaki are just advanced humans that look like us, talk like us, they have sex, they drink beer, they have feelings, they get angry, they go to war, just like us. So this is why I say to people that if you want to really see what aliens look like, just look at yourself in the mirror, because we are the aliens. We're not native to this planet, at least in this current form, because they seeded us. And when you go back to the ancient Hopi, the Aborigine, the Dogons in Mali, even the natives that are in Mesoamerica, they all say that their gods came from the stars. So, and the Anunnaki basically came from the stars. They came from a different planet. So what happened then is that there was always this struggle for power, because as I said, where you have Enki and Enlil, this is an allegory for the system that we have, the dual system. If you look at politics, you have right wing and left wing. But the right wing and left wing are basically just two different wings of the same bird. And the bird is the control system that was set up. Now, this story gets very, very interesting, because Enki and Enlil are brothers. They're half brothers. But you have their father Anu, who basically, according to Anunnaki tradition, the crown prince would be the prince that is born from the half sister of the king. But what happened is that Enki, even though he was the firstborn, he was the son of a consort. And Enlil, the younger brother, he was the son of Anu's half sister. So he would be the rightful ruler. He'd be the crown prince. But Enki was always felt a bit begrudged by it. And his son Marduk, that I mentioned before, and we can talk about him, he was always disgruntled about it, and he always felt that his father should be the ruler. So he used to make a lot of mischief. And basically he was trying to just take everything for himself and to rule. Even he bypassed his father's wishes and went to war with the Anunnaki and stuff. And we know about these characters through their symbology. So basically, the Anunnaki gods are basically in all of our religious books. They're in the Bible, they're in the Torah, they're in the Quran, they are in the Vedas, they are in the Ahura Mazda for Zoroastrians, and Zohar, and that book, the Zohar, yeah, that you know what I mean, that all of those are Anunnaki beings, but they just changed their name slightly. So how to track these beings is through their symbology. So Enlil, his symbol was the eagle. This is why he was the Lord of the Air. And if you think of the countries that have eagles or double-headed eagles on their coat of arms or their crests, these are what you call Enlilite faction. So countries like the United States, you have Russia, you have Azerbaijan, you have Egypt, you have all these countries that have Austria, Iraq, all of these countries are warring countries, right? So they are part of that consciousness. Then now you have Enki. He was the serpent in the Genesis story, because he, according to the book of Jasher, and also in the tablets, he was the one that gave humanity consciousness. He told us that the God in the Garden of Eden was not the creator of all things, and that he said that he created us to be like one of them. And this is told to us in the legend of Adapa. So that's another tablet for people to read. And then, but his most popular symbols are the fish and the goat. So the fish is where you were king him to be the god for the Dogon tribe, because they said that their god, he came in like a fish suit, and he spoke to them, and he saved them from the flood, and he taught them. And then if you look at the Catholicism, you see that the Pope, he has a hat on top of his head, and that hat looks very much like the mouth of the fish when it's open. And you can see online, if you search it, the fish god, which was really Enki. And then you see the Pope and the hat on his head. You see they look exactly the same. So then now you have Marduk. His most prominent symbol was the bull or the bull calf. And when Moses went to Mount Sinai to get the tablets, the commandments from God, and he came back down, the Jews were worshiping a golden calf. And that was Marduk, who was trying to infiltrate that cult, because religions are basically cults, through the back door. And then you have Ningashida, who was also known as Thoth in Egypt. He was god of wisdom. And then he took the moniker of the plumed serpent in Mesoamerica and South America. And then you have Nanarsin, who was the moon god of Ur in Mesopotamia. So how we know who these beings are is by their symbology. And if you look on a masjid or a mosque or any Islamic places, there's always a crescent moon, which is the symbol that Nanarsin used in Ur. So basically, this is how we're able to track these beings. And I know that that's quite a mouthful, and a lot of people be saying, whoa, Todd, you're just speaking a lot of tales. But I encourage people to read these books. And I'm going to give people... As
you say that, I am taking notes, and I'm like, yeah, it might be nice to have a little recap of the truth bomb you just dropped on us, because wow, I mean, have I seen that in other places? Yes. Have I ever had it from this perspective? No, and I appreciate it. It is very reminiscent of things I've heard Matt LaCroix talk about, albeit he takes a sort of the archaeological examination approach. But I want you to expand on this eagle, serpent, bull symbolism. It almost reminds me of like the cherubim, is it? I don't know if the serpent...
The cherubim.
Yeah, there's the biblical image of the lion, the bull, the eagle, and the serpent, right? Isn't that a part of the lore somehow? Maybe I missed this, but is the lion somehow symbolic of something in the same way the eagle is represented and the serpent are represented? And if you could just recap briefly the major symbols and who
Sure.
which groups are associated with which one, because I think people are always looking for those tidbits. It's very helpful.
Sure. So basically, I'm going to take it a little deeper. Enlil, whose symbol is the eagle, he is Lord of Air and Command, and his attributes are very much akin to Yahweh and Jehovah. And Yahweh and Jehovah was very much a war god in the Old Testament. In fact, I can actually give people a couple of things here to look at, where it says here, if you look in 1 Chronicles 21, verse 1, actually, let me give the other one first. And there's a reason for that. So there's this, if you look at 2 Samuel 24, verse 1, it says, again, the anger of the Lord, capital letters, the Lord, was kindled against Israel, and he incited David against them, saying, go number Israel and Judah. So we have the same story, but it is told in 1 Chronicles 21, verse 1. Then Satan stood against Israel and incited David to number Israel. So basically, you have the same story that David was told to go and number Israel. And then one is saying the Lord, and the next one is saying Satan. Now, excuse me, this was basically Enlil at the time, because Enlil, when he took up the name of Yahweh and Jehovah, his people didn't have a lot of land and stuff, and they went to war with the other factions in the Anunnaki to get the land. And this is why he's also known as Satan. Now, there's the thing, is that the word Satan is also very much misunderstood, because Satan simply means the adversary, right? And is not necessarily a particular person. And Satan is not this red character with a tail and a pitchfork. That was all invented by the Catholic Church to instill fear in us. But these gods with a small g, they were our Satans, they were our adversaries, they were our enemies against humanity. And what they did is that they caused us to fight against each other so that we would do their work for them and to get their land for them, and so that we feed them, because we don't forget we used to do all these sacrifices to them and what's not, burnt offering and everything. And it was all for them to get veneration and to siphon off our energy. So Enlil is Yahweh Jehovah. And then you have Enki. He basically was the serpent in the Garden of Eden. Now, if you go back into antiquity, the serpent was always a symbol of knowledge or gnosis or enlightenment, basically the bringer of knowledge. And in the book of Jasher, which is mentioned in the Bible but taken out, Adam tells his wife, his son Seth, that your mother Eve is the one that taught me consciousness, and she told me that the God in the Garden of Eden was not the God of the creator of all things. And this is also mentioned in the Sumerian tablets, where Enki tells Adam, and don't forget, Adam was not one person. Adam was a race of people, because after Nana Ishtar Isis, she bore the first Adam. It was called the Adama. Adama meaning the first of many, basically the mankind. It was a new race that was born. So it was a group of people. And he said that basically he gave us consciousness, and he told us that basically he created us to be one of the best of the Anunnaki. And he told us that he created us that basically we would be even better than them. And this is where the story in the Bible comes from, where the fallen angels were supposed to bow and worship Adam. Again, worship the creation, the man that they created, because we were made of both flesh and spirit. And our potential was that we'd be even greater than them, because we were much purer while they were all in the ego. Then Marduk, he is the bull or the bull calf. So he was also the chief god in Babylon. He was also called Baal or Bel, Moloch. Moloch was the bull that the Jews and the people of Babylonia would sacrifice their children to. Now, Marduk, from my research, he seems to be one that's ruling Earth at the moment. And Marduk loves child sacrifice. He loves pedophilia, and he loves all of the debauchery that is going on. So this is why you see that abortions are a very, very big topic in the United States, because look, my point is not that I agree or disagree with abortions. I'm just saying that what he likes is he likes child sacrifice. He likes a lot of pedophilia, and he likes all of this stuff to go with human sacrifice. And he is also known in the Aztec tradition as the name Huetzalcoatl. I think I'm not pronouncing that properly, but if you look for the sun god of the Aztecs, is Huetztepotl from memory. And he basically is the one that always wanted murder. He, in the book of Enoch, he would be akin to Azazel. So Azazel is the one that they say that Enoch says that attribute all sin to. He's the one that taught us meteorology, weaponry, warfare. He taught the women to face paint, basically makeup. And he's the one that introduced a lot of the ego consciousness in man, because he's the one that is an absolute warlord. So then you have his symbol was the bull calf, which is why I said that when you see Moloch has the signs of the bull on his head. Then also he was also known as Amun-Ra or Ra. So basically, when you read the papyrus, Amun-Ra made a decree, and he said that after you say your prayers, you say my name, you invoke my name, Amun, A-M-U-N. And Amun over time became Amen. So this is why whenever you're using the word Jesus, that's an actual egregore. And the meaning of an egregore is basically a non-physical entity or thought form that arises from the collective thoughts and emotions of a distinct group of individuals. And the reason why I made that statement is because the word Jesus never, ever, ever, ever existed until a few hundred years ago. And the character that became the Christ was known as Yehoshua or Yeshua. So Marduk, he was the god that tried to infiltrate Judaism through the back door. And I would argue that he has done that. But he was the god that the Jews were worshiping. At the time, they weren't even called Jews. They were called Hebrews. So let's keep it 100. And the Hebrews and the Israelites were worshiping after Moses came down from Mount Sinai. And that was the golden calf. So then Thoth, Ningashida, he was the god of wisdom in Egypt. And he took the plumed serpent moniker. So as I said before, that the serpent was always associated with knowledge. Like in the Hindu religion, they're called the Nagas. And the Nagas are always wrapped around entities like Vishnu, Krishna, Shiva. They're everywhere. Nagas are a symbol of gnosis, knowledge. So what he did is he took the plumed serpent, which just means a serpent with wings, and he went to Mesoamerica and South America. And Nana Sin, he is the god Allah that the Muslims worship, and his symbol was the crescent moon. Now we know that in he was the moon god, and that cult that was in we can track that cult right down into Arabia. And this is why before Islam went to Arabia, there were 3 goddesses that they would worship: Alat, Manat, and Aluza. And Alat is the feminine for what became Allah. And the symbol that was chosen for Islam was the crescent moon. They use a lunar calendar. Ramadan is always cited on the first crescent moon to bring into Ramadan. And that's how you break your fast as well, when you have the next cycle. And normally it's like 28 days that Ramadan lasts for. We can track that cult from straight into Arabia. And this is why all religions have extraterrestrial gods that they're worshiping. So now let's talk a little bit about the serpent and knowledge. So if you you can look at many different crests like Russia and the United States. There was always this eagle. There are 2 types of consciousness: the eagle consciousness, which represents more of a war consciousness. And then you have the serpent consciousness, which is more like feminine, which is more of the giver of knowledge. And this is why if you look at our DNA, you see that it is a double helix symbol. Then if you look at the symbol for the caduceus, which is the symbol for medicine, you see two twisted serpents going around a staff, and then you have wings on the top. Even the symbol for medicine, you have a staff with a single serpent going through them. Now, so there was always a clash between the ego consciousness and the serpent consciousness. And if anyone wants to see where this is best represented, it is represented on the Mexican peso. So anyone that's listening to this podcast, if you pull up the crest of Mexico, you will see something called Estados Unidos Mexicanos, and you will see that there's an eagle, and then you will see that it has a serpent in its mouth and in its foot. And that is a representation of the serpent consciousness being conquered by the eagle consciousness. And the conquistadors, when they came to Mesoamerica, they were very much of the eagle consciousness because they were warring consciousness. And what I have found is that the monarch in Spain, they knew about the legend that the native people in Mexico had, that their god Quetzalcoatl would come back. And basically Quetzalcoatl appeared to have been white, and he would come back on some animal. So when the Spaniards got off the boats and they were on horses, the natives automatically thought that was Quetzalcoatl coming back. And this is why they were so hospitable to them. But what happened is that the Spaniards, they took the hospitality, and then they double-crossed the natives, and they turned around and enslaved them. And the Mexican peso is a very, very good representation of when the conquistadors, they took over Mesoamerica, and it is a battle of consciousness. One group is trying to give us consciousness and help free humanity from mental slavery, and the next group is trying to completely dominate and control us. And in that group that's trying to dominate and control us, there are two groups in that same group. This is where you get the communism or socialism from. They're two bad entities, but they all agree that humans must be slaves, but they just have slightly different versions of how that's going to look like. One wants to do it with brute force, and the next group wants to do it through technology. So this is where you get a divide further in there. And if you want to read some books to understand some of these things, I would encourage people to read books like The Lost Book of Enki, the Atrahasis, the Enuma Elish, and other books like Pistis Sophia, the Nag Hammadi texts, others like the Book of Enoch. And these are very, very good books that would help, explain a lot of these things. And yeah, because basically we are in a battle for our consciousness. And this is why the media feeds us a lot of fear, because humans are very easily controlled through fear. And the Anunnaki, they know that, because after all, they created us. So they have studied us for hundreds of thousands of years. And they know that human beings are very well managed. We can be herded and corralled through fear. But just look at what happened 4 years ago with the pandemic. They injected a lot of fear into our consciousness, got people to inject themselves with substances that they know nothing about. Then they also got them to wear face diapers and be trying to clean their hands all the time with gel, which is total insanity. So you have to take a test to find out that you have some sickness. So I thought if you're sick, you'd be sick. But no, you have to take a test to find out that you have a sickness. And then you have to go and isolate yourself. And then you have to wear a face diaper. Then you need to go and inject yourself. Then you have to quarantine yourself, even if you're injected. So it's just, when a human is in fear, he can't think straight, and he will make very poor choices. So this is why we are in the state that we're in now, because the consciousness of man has been conquered a very long time ago. And now, because we are going into Aquarius, and now because the magnetosphere is very low, so all this energy is coming into the earth, that we're sort of having like a renaissance of this information. Because the things that I'm sharing is not things that I made up or things that I just found. These are things that have existed for hundreds of thousands of years. This whole concept about consciousness, because even when Yeshua came to earth, just look at Yeshua or Christ as just a cool dude that came here to try to teach us how to get out of the matrix. Because even back then, he could see that the matrix was what it is. And he would say, hey, just talk like me, do like me, and think like me. And you will get out of the matrix. You will have freedom, you will have abundance, you will have love, and you won't be having any stress. And what we did, instead of following what he told us to do, we ended up creating religions, worshiping the man, Jesus, which again, like I said, is just an egregore, just Jesus, the term, never existed. And we have people that just say, oh, give it to Jesus, and he will sort everything out. But we're not doing any work on ourselves. We're not trying to challenge our beliefs or what we believe or what we believe of ourselves or what we think. We're just listening to a mainstream media that's telling us what to believe instead of us trying to figure out, well, what does all of this mean? So this is why conversations like what we're having tonight are very important, because I know that many people may completely disagree with what I say, and that is fine. But it's what I say to people: go and read the books for yourself, see what you find. And then if you find something different, then we can have a conversation, because it means then that you may find something that I did not find, and we can have a conversation about it, because I am not the oracle of truth, but I know a little bit about a little bit.
Right.
I teach that little bit to people because we're all very confused right now in the world. You know what I mean?
Well, certainly. And I would argue that you know a lot more than you will let on. But hey, humility goes a long way. So I don't blame you for that. And really, I'm just, jaw dropped over here. I love the amount of information that you have readily available extemporaneously. So it's truly a treat to have you here. And yeah, Todd, I'm curious, because a lot of people, I think, write these topics off and say, well, that was the past. This is ancient history. It doesn't affect us, in the modern day. You don't see these types of, half animal, half human hybrids walking around. You don't see sacrifices to Baal in the public squares, right? This is maybe the naive assumption from a lot of people who might be blue-pilled tuning into this conversation. And yeah, it goes to extremes where, some people will say, oh, well, every single event is in some way, a sacrifice to these beings. So help me understand exactly how you see it. Like, where do you see these entities exerting their influence today? Is it purely on those high level, tiers of the hierarchy, or is it something more mystical, something more, metaphysical, I guess, for lack of a more sophisticated term?
It appears that it is all levels. So, no, we took a step back and we went into the past. So, as I said before, the way I see our entire planet is being managed and governed is through what I call, I'm the only one that says it like this, but so you can say coined it, but I call it the three religions: the religion of money, the religion of government, and the religion of an organized religion. And the reason why those three are the overarching control systems is that it affects exactly how we think, what we believe is real, and our identity. So when you were born, you were given a name, a race, and a nationality. You didn't ask for any of that, but you were given that. So what's going to happen then is that you were also given a religion. Well, most people. So the religion that you're given, you didn't choose it. So you view your world solely through the scope of being a Jew, a Muslim, a Christian, a Hindu, whatever. So your total way of being is somewhat governed by this belief system. Now, if religion didn't get you, the other religion of government is going to get you. Because just like organized religion, there's always a savior character. Always. Just look at cults. Cults always are based on the same technology, which is a savior character, and is this high priest or person that knows everything. He is the connection between God, or quotation marks, God, and you. And what government does is that government has people believing in the idea that the government is actually the friend of the people. And there are people, and I am completely apolitical, and you have people on the right and the left that are believing that Donald Trump is their savior. Then you have other people that think, and I call her Camel Toe Harris, because I just think it's funny, because I don't think she has a brain at all, but I digress. And you have another group of people that are supporting Camel Toe Harris. No, look, what people don't understand is that this political system was designed by the Anunnaki, right? And what it is that through their bloodlines, their bloodlines are the ones that are running the show, lock, stock, and barrel. And what people also don't understand is that it doesn't matter what side wins. It will be the main team winning, because there's no left or right. There's only the uniparty. There's the one party that wins. Because if people are actually honest, intellectually honest about themselves, whenever government involves itself into anything, things only get worse, right? And government hardly does anything good for the people. Hardly, right? So we have something called the Saturnalian bloodline. It is the 13 Zoroastrian bloodlines of the Illuminati. This group of people are at the top of the top of the top of the food chain. So the way the whole system works is that there are 3 levels of 13 families that rule this planet. And at the very top, you have the 13 Zoroastrian bloodline families. And these are names that I'm going to call today that people have never heard about. These are the people that own us. These are the families. So you have the family of Borgia, or Borja in Spanish. You have the family of Breckspear, Samagli, Orsini, Conti, Chigi, Colonna, Farmise, Medici, Giatani, Pamphil, Este, and Aldobrandini. Now, out of those families, the main families that are running the show are the Breckspear, Samagli, Orsini, Medici, Dini, and to somewhat the Este. And these are the families that they trace their bloodlines right back to Sumeria, right back to the Anunnaki, because they are the descendants of the first rulers that were put on earth. This is why they believe it is their divine right to rule. And they have been indoctrinated to be the way that they are. They are not human. When I say they're not human in terms of mind, because you can't be a human and you're trying to subjugate your fellow man and bring in mass genocide, do democide through your governments that you own, and you're telling me that you're a human being. The empathy inside them is gone. So I don't think they're human anymore. So basically, government, it doesn't matter who gets in. If camel toe gets in or freaking Trump gets in, it's the same bird, right? You have one flavor. I just want to tell people, what flavor of communism do you want? Do you want communism light or communism heavy? They're both communism. So if that religion doesn't get you, the religion of government, then the religion of money gets you, where there are people that will do anything for money. They will sell their soul. Look at our entertainers. Look at all of these musicians. These are people that have bought the religion of money. So they do anything for a buck. This is why when you look at the music now, it's all full of debauchery. There's no soul in it. There's nothing that, if you listen to 50s and 60s music, it was a lot more uplifting than what we have now. And those three religions are what basically rule the earth. And they govern how we think, how we act, and how we react. And what all of these religions do is that they separate us from source. And there's no actual separation, but through our mind, because we think there's separation, there is separation. But you can't separate from something that you are, because we are all made in the image of God. And God, I find, is a very limiting word. I prefer to use source, but for this example, for this analogy, we use the word God. We are all fractals of God. We're fractal containing the whole, which means that we have the entire whole inside of us. So to explain this, if you go to the beach and you take a cup and you take water out of the beach, from the sea, sorry, and in that cup, you have the ocean inside of the cup. That water in the cup has the same saline solution, the same properties, and guess what? It is also wet because it is water, right? This is how we need to look at ourselves in terms of source and God. We are a fractal of God. So the cup is like a representation of the fractal. And the cup of water contains the entire ocean. When I say the entire ocean, the physical attributes, the saline solution, the color, the taste, everything that is of the water in the sea is in that cup. And that is us. We are a fractal of God. So we just have an individualized expression of God, but we are co-creators, so we can create. So that means that we have the same exact powers of God. This is why when Christ spoke his most important words, he said them through the I am. He says, I am the truth, the way, and the life. He also said, I am the resurrection and the life. So the I am is the God in you. This is the Kundalini or the Christ or the Krishna, whatever word you want to use. This is their God. This is the God presence inside of you. So what Christ was, he was invoking his God self. So he became the God man. So this is why he could do really good feats like healing people, which I'm going to touch on in a bit. He also turned water into wine. He fed the 5,000. He did all these great things, right? Because he was working through the I am. This is what he always said. I work through the Father. It is through the Father that I can do these things. He never, ever took anything for himself. He always said through the Father. No, there's something that a lot of people don't recognize is that Christ didn't really actually heal people. People healed themselves. No, that's a very big statement to me, and I'm going to give some evidence to support why I say that. So there's something that a lot of these people did is that they believed that if they were to touch this man or get close to this man, that they themselves would be healed. So this is what Christ said is through your belief, you are healed. He said, through your belief, go forward and sin no more. No. Through medical science, we actually have something that we know that is called the placebo effect. We also have something called the nocebo. So the placebo effect, when and drugs are brought to market normally, unlike the drugs that were brought the last few years, is something called a double-blind placebo test that they do. And what that is that you get two groups of people. One group of people will receive the quotation marks medicine, and the next group would receive a saline solution or a sugar pill. The doctors that are administering the medicine, they also do not know which is which. And in all the studies that I saw, 30 to 33% of all patients that received the saline solution or the sugar pill had healing from the said illness or disease. So it means that it was through their thoughts and their belief that this medicine would cure them, they cured themselves. This is why Christ knew that he told them through your belief. So this is why I argue and say that Christ never healed anyone, because it was through the belief of the people had in him that they were healed. So I say all that to say that the system that was set up was designed to catch us one way or the other, either believing that money is our God, where people sell soldiers to get the dollar bill. Other people believe in government, and then other people just follow organized religion. But all the followers of these religions have one thing in common, is that they're zealots. If you try to break down this information that we brought down tonight to them, they will all vehemently disagree with everything I said, which is fine. But I'm going to share a story with you to compound my point. So many years ago, I dated a Muslim girl, and she said to me, Todd, I don't care if the information that you have is true, is a fact, it can't be denied, it happened in history, or there's evidence. If the information is going to take me away from my religion, I don't want to hear it. So can you imagine, right? Someone is telling you that they are prepared and happy to believe a lie because the lie makes them comfortable, than to accept the truth and to go through the identity crisis or the pain. And this is what we have now.
Yeah.
From post 2020 to now, we have people that are living in denial.
Yeah.
People know deep inside them that the government is not their friend. They know that these jabs that they gave us did not work, and it was all a lie. We know that government and politicians tell lies. We know that the media tells lies, but people do not want to accept the truth because it is too painful to accept that they're being conned, tricked, and being stolen from. So what people do is they dial it down, or double down, they double down even more on their belief systems and get even more extreme. Look at, like, people, if you ask them why they support Kamala Harris, oh, well, because it's the right time for a woman. No, I don't have a problem with a woman being a leader of a country, but at least tell me, she has this point of view and she wants to do X. She wants to do Y. People can't actually tell you why. As opposed to people that support Trump, and I'm not saying that Trump is a good guy and that I support him. I actually think he's part of it as well, but that's another conversation. At least those people can actually say, well, I like him because he wants to do this, he wants to do that, and he wants to do that. Now, I still think that they're a bit deluded because he's not the savior, and they're putting all of their hope and trust and faith in a man that didn't do a lot of the things that he said he was going to do, and blatantly is just, an untrustworthy guy. That's all I can say, right? But at least that side can explain the point, when the other side, they can't. So the Anunnaki set up all of these systems because they know that we will be in perpetual mental slavery. Then just look at another level. The education system makes you stupid. The health system kills you. The food that they give us makes us fat. The TV brainwashes us and doesn't teach us how to think. The legal system puts us in prison, right? Everything is a total, complete inversion. The FDA is what you call the Fear and Death, association. The CDC, they're what? Criminal, they're a committee of democide criminals. You know what I'm saying? Man, this whole system is breaking. And what they're doing is that they're distracting us with bread and circus, the Olympic Games. I mean, look, I like European football, but I've tapped out of European football because I realized that all that does is that, you argue with people, oh, my team is better than yours. But how is that helping you to improve your life? How are you learning about meditation? Are you reading a book to understand some of the things I'm talking about? Are you in the gym trying to get into shape? Or are you trying to learn about the fears and traumas that you have or how you can forgive yourself for those so you can forgive others? No, we're not doing any of those things. We're being caught up in the system, and all we're doing is fighting against each other. And this is why Christ said that a house divided amongst itself shall surely fall. And we are the house of God. We make up the body of Christ. Yeah. And the more we keep fighting against each other, the more we are going to be in this situation where we don't feel fulfilled in life. We're not happy. We're in relationships that we don't want to be in. We're working jobs that don't fulfill us. And all we're doing is, waiting for a savior to come and save us. And this is what the Anunnaki set up through their bloodlines, who are the aristocrats, the central bankers, the politicians, the monarchy, the head of state. All of these people that are ruling us come through this bloodline, or bloodlines, because they're like two bloodlines that are in the group that are trying to control us, and they all fight against each other to try to get the total dominance, like the Ring of Sauron in the Lord of the Rings. And that is basically what we have now. And what we're doing is that, look at what's going on in the example in the UK. We have the Muslims fighting against the native English people, but they're failing to realize that the government is going to use that situation to bring in more rules to govern them and make things more difficult for them. Dude, check this out. In the UK now, right? If you share a tweet or a post on social media that the government says is disinformation or promotes hatred, they will arrest you, You are going to prison. This is absolutely insane. So what's happening is that the two groups of people are fighting against each other to allow the government to bring in these types of measures. And then at the end of the day, the people that are fighting against each other just lost more of their human rights,
right?
So we're being played. This is my message to people. We are being played, and we're being played to fight each other. So instead of fighting each other, why don't we fight them? We can say, listen, all right, I'm a Jew, you're a Muslim. We have a different belief system, but these guys are trying to freaking enslave us. Let us band together, put the differences aside, and take it to them. But they don't want that. They want you to stay in that corner and fight and say, my God is better than yours, and your God is Satan. And who cares, right? Let's get together. Let's take it to them, and let's break the system, because the system can't be fixed. So we need to break the system so that we can actually create a new system, but a new system that is with decentralization. It actually has people that have better morals. And I think that what we should do is like go so far to the other side where we should be having psychedelics a normal thing in every single country, where people are doing psychedelics to overcome fears and traumas, get in touch with their higher self, become the Christ, get Christ consciousness, start teaching, informing, and educating people healing people, teaching people how to get into shape, do meditation. All these are things that we should be doing, but we can't do that if we're spending all of our time fighting.
Right.
Look at the whole Israel and Gaza situation. Those people don't realize that at the end of the day, more insane laws are going to come and they're going to have even less freedom. And for what? To prove that my God is better than yours? When they're all extraterrestrial gods, my friend? Man, I just find it hilarious. You know what I mean?
I'm right there with you, Todd. I mean, it's hard to follow up when you eloquently put it so, and it's a distressing situation. It's funny. I have had just in this past 2 months several guests on who live in the UK, and first they come for the memes. Next thing you know, they might be taking down podcasts if they haven't already. We've seen that happen here in the United States with Alex Jones and his podcast being taken off of the Apple RSS feed, which I think one of the only times that's ever happened, maybe outside of some kind of terrorist podcast or some, I mean, I can't even imagine what kind of depravity would get censored on a podcast feed. But yeah, it's just sad that we're in this state where we can't even exchange freely. This here is probably one of the last bastions of this kind of speech. And luckily for us, a lot of people are tuned into this kind of thing and looking for these conversations, because while all this is going on with them, rushing as fast as they can to close everyone's third eyes as quickly as they can, their media, their mainstream media is more and more, failing to satisfy people. And I think that's turning people to authentic media like the type we're creating here, with these conversations. So I do want to ask you if you join me for part 2. I don't know if you have time this week or within the next few days, but I have so many more questions to follow up with, and we're already at our 2-hour time
already.
Yeah,
wow.
I know, right? And there is so much to still talk about. So yeah, if you're able to, I'd love to get you back on really quickly to just continue this conversation. But as we sort of come to a close at this point in the conversation, tell the audience where they can find you, what you have going on, and anything you'd like to promote.
Sure. And before I do that, I just want to close out the conversation with a quote from a guy called Martin Niemöller. He was a German when the Nazis were doing all their thing. And he says, "First they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I wasn't a Jew. And then they came for me, and there was no one to speak up for me." So I wanted to leave the end on that quote, because what is happening is that because we are not necessarily affected personally, a lot of people don't think that they should stick up for those that are being oppressed or being treated badly, like you mentioned with Alex Jones, right? And no one came to Alex Jones's defense because it wasn't them. But the day that they come for them, they will want other people to stick up for them. But no one will be able to do that because everyone else will be gone and they'll be alone. So, yes. So as I have said early in the conversation, I am an online fitness trainer. So I help spiritually and kind people burn fat and build muscle. And I do a really good job at that as well. So if you would like to go on a fitness journey, you heard the conversation tonight and you're like, you know what? I need to make a change in my life. I need to start to take responsibility for my life. I need to become a better father, a better mother. I need to be that person that, is the rock in my family. Then I can help you to do that, because my take on it is that you go through the body in order to get to the mind and to the spirit. Because in order for you to get into shape, you end up having to change your mindset in order to do it, because getting in shape is relatively easy physically, but is actually more difficult mentally. Right. And because you have to be consistent, you have to eat what you're supposed to eat. It takes a proper mindset and a strong mindset to not go and want to eat Mackie D's and all those treats that you love. So this is why I work a lot on the mindset. And then also, because I'm a spiritual guy as well, I will introduce things like meditation and tell you books to read and all that kind of stuff in order to help you on your journey.
Yeah, well, you've already given us a whole list here just in this conversation. So folks, don't hesitate to rewind and jot some of those titles down, because there's tons of information. I'm going to go back every episode I transcribe, and I'm going to go back and take some notes before we talk again on top of the notes I already took. So I encourage the audience to send in some questions as well for Todd's return very quickly. Yeah, I really hope you'll join me. I don't mean to be a bug on you and be like, hey, come back, so soon. No, this was so fascinating. And I really think that it's a perfect time for this conversation, both tiers of it, the wellness side of it and the, for lack of a better term, the darkness side of it, which is just like this, realization that, we can't fear what's in the dark, what's in the night. We have to understand it and be aware of it so we can conquer it, especially these things that have been hiding in the shadows for far too long, many of the forces we've discussed already in this conversation. But yeah, Todd, wow. Very mind-blowing stuff. I really appreciate it. I kind of jumped in on what you're saying there, so feel free to close out what you're saying. And personally, I'm interested in taking you up on that. If you would be so kind to maybe coach me for a little bit, and I can promote that on the show and give you your due diligence in that respect.
Yeah, that'd be totally fine. I'd be honored to do that. And if all this information resonated with you, you can find me at Adriano_246 on Instagram, or my name Todd Cave on Facebook. And topics like this and conversations like this are also found on my podcast channel, which is called The Conscious Man 7. It is easier to find me on Spreaker, but I'm on all other platforms as well: BitChute, Rumble, Amazon, Apple, Spotify. But Spreaker is the best place to find me. And the reason is that when I drop new episodes, you can set the app to automatically download the episode, and you will get a notification that is available to listen, while the other platforms don't necessarily do that. So I always encourage people to use Spreaker, because if you like the content, every time I drop, you will find out. And at the moment, we're dropping like 2 shows a week. But as we get more and more, I guess to say, busy, we'll probably up that to 3. But yeah, I really love it. So, and also if you want to get yourself some magic mushrooms because you're on a spiritual journey, you want to start a spiritual journey, or you want to overcome some fears and traumas, and also if you have things like PTSD and depression and stuff, hit me up. I can help you to get some magic mushrooms, because these things are very good for you. They are very much work with the brain. They help create new neurons in the brain, create new neural pathways. And there's a lot of evidence to show that the people that actually use magic mushrooms, either through full immersion or microdosing, can actually come off antidepressants and stuff like that. And I have one lady that she gets from me, and she's completely come off of her antidepressants now. And she's starting back dating again. She's starting back doing things that she wasn't doing before. And all of this is because she heard me, and she reached out and she asked for help, and I helped her. And I'm very, very happy to share that story with everyone, because these are things that are suppressed and they don't want us to know about, because they want us hooked onto their medicines that we have to keep being an eternal customer for, and they don't actually serve us and do anything for us. And in fact, they make us worse. So if that is you and you want help with any of the things that we spoke about, fitness, you listen to my podcast, or you want to get some magic mushrooms, again, at Adriano_246, Todd Cave on Facebook, The Conscious Man 7 on Spreaker and all other platforms. And Mark, I just want to say many thanks for having me on your show. It was a great conversation, and I would be delighted to come back for part 2 and answer any questions that your audience may have, and to go a little bit deeper, because you're correct. We've only scratched the surface of the stuff that I talk about, and I'm very happy to go way, way deeper and do 2-3 shows if necessary to get it all out, you know?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Todd. I appreciate that. And we'll be in touch to schedule that. And yeah, I do have many questions about mushrooms myself. It's something that we talk about often here on the show, and came up just today in conversation. So in daily life. So yeah, very fun stuff. And I feel inspired because, honestly, just full transparency, I haven't been having the best week. So I think this conversation came at just the right time for me personally, and I hope it did the same for the audience tuning in. So please, folks, go and check out Todd with everything he's doing. The Conscious Man 7, that's the numeral 7. You can find the links and all that in the description of this episode. And Spreaker's great. Podcast Addict also does the same thing, I will say. That's the app I like to use. I have an Android phone. But yeah, plenty of podcast apps do that now. Spotify should do that for you too, if you click follow. But anyways, great stuff, Todd. I love it. I appreciate your time, and I hope the audience tunes in for our part 2. And until then, folks, immerse yourself in the moment wherever you are in the now.